excessive sweating, the first symptom is excessive sweating. We call this hyperhidrosis. You may sweat more than you should, given the circumstances. Let's say you're wearing a jacket. It's cold outside, and then all of a sudden, you start sweating. Or you go into a room where it's cold, and you turn the heat up, and then you start sweating. In other words, your body temperature is getting too hot. The mechanism to cool down is sweating, but that can also be due to stress and anxiety. So let's talk about that, because that's what we're interested in today. Memory of a fire. Do you remember the last time you were running and you felt the heat? Well, there was a memory that came up for me. I used to babysit as a teenager, and the family had a 2-story home. And there was a deck off the kitchen that went down a flight of stairs, a concrete flight of stairs. And I remember babysitting these kids, and all of a sudden, I smelled smoke. And I thought, wow, the stove burner must have been left on, or they might have left a candle burning. And so I started to walk toward the kitchen. And the older brother said, "Don't go near there. Don't go near the deck." And he ran out the front door. And I thought, well, okay, there must be some danger there. So I stayed inside, and within a couple minutes, the house was engulfed with black smoke. There was no fire department. No one came to help us. I remember grabbing the kids and rushing them out the front door, and I don't remember much after that except for I remember seeing flames. So what happened? Well, it turns out the father left a barbecue on the deck, and he went to the basement and fell asleep. That's how the fire started. But what happened to me is I never babysat again. I was pretty traumatized by that experience. So here's the point. The reason why I shared that story with you is sometimes an event is so overwhelming and traumatic that the body never forgets. And then a simple smell or a visual reminder brings back that trauma, which then generates a state of panic. And what do you do when you're in a state of panic? You sweat. So this next symptom is actually related to that same case. It's the trout. Okay, picture this. You're holding a fish in your hand, and the fish is trying to escape, so it makes itself slippery, right? It tries to slime itself so it can get away. What does that make you do? You try to hold on tighter, right? So you squeeze your fingers tighter, and the fish slips more, and then you squeeze even tighter. Then what happens? You lose the fish. Why? Because you clenched your fists, you became tight, and then the fish got away. Now, in therapy, we work with people who do things like this. When they're nervous, they become tense. It's a defense mechanism called constriction. Constrict means to squeeze, and when you're really nervous, you squeeze everything. Your muscles tense up, and if you squeeze too hard, you can lose control. And so this trout is basically teaching you to be aware of the tendency to get too tight when you re-stressed. If you get too tight, you can't breathe. You choke. So you have to learn how to relax your body and stay open, so you don't feel overwhelmed. The second symptom is conflict. What are you afraid of? Let's break this down. First, we'll look at the hands. What are you afraid of doing with your hands? Maybe you're anxious about going to work and you feel like you might embarrass yourself in front of your coworkers, or you might mess up some important task. Let's say you're a surgeon and you're about to perform surgery and you think, what if I make a mistake? This is a big deal. You don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to be sued for malpractice. You don't want your reputation to be ruined. You don't want your career to end. So maybe you have a conflict of fear, a fear of doing something wrong. But there could also be a motherly fear. That's right, you could be afraid of losing your child. Maybe you're holding your baby and you're so scared that you might drop that baby. So you worry all the time about what you're going to do with your hands, and that fear causes you to sweat. How about the feet? What are you trying to wash away that's related to your mother? For example, my mother always used to tell me, "You dirty animal, you need to take a shower." She would criticize me about how dirty I was. And so if I saw myself getting dirty, I would rush to the bathroom to clean myself up. Now, if I were to see myself sweating, I might think, oh my gosh, I'm dirty, I need to take a shower. But underneath that thought might be the belief that my mother was right. I am a dirty animal. Or I could be afraid of being punished. I could have been punished when I was a kid for getting dirty, so I continue that pattern. When I see myself getting sweaty, I think I'm getting punished. Or maybe you re-stepping in the wrong places, and your shoes get dirty, and you start sweating, and you think, oh my God, I stepped in the wrong place again. Maybe you're attracted to someone, and you want to impress them, so you put on your best shoes, and then all of a sudden, you start sweating. My advice is, whatever you're afraid of doing, that's the answer. Whatever you don't want to happen, that's the answer. You have a fear of losing something, and that causes you to sweat. The third symptom is your neck starts sweating. Somebody's accusing you of doing something wrong. Let's say you're at work and your boss says, "I want to see you in my office." And you think, "Oh God, what did I do now?" Or maybe you've done nothing, but you feel like you've been set up. You think someone at work doesn't like you and they're trying to get rid of you. So you go into your boss's office and you try to defend yourself and you say, "I didn't do anything wrong." And your boss still doesn't believe you, so you feel even worse. It's not fair. Why is nobody listening to me? So you want to convince them that you're telling the truth? And how do you do that? You start sweating. That's how you prove your innocence, right? You show them that you're being sincere, but it's not fair. Nobody's listening to me. Why is this happening to me? The fourth symptom is sweating armpits. What is the conflict involving someone I mother or someone under my protection? A mother protects her children, right? So if I'm feeling threatened, maybe it's not even an actual threat. Maybe it's an imagined threat. Maybe I think somebody wants to hurt me. Then the response is to protect myself or someone that I care about. Maybe you're a teacher and you're afraid a student is going to cause trouble. So you're worried about that student. So when you're around that student, you start sweating. You're afraid they're going to embarrass you, so you're trying to protect yourself. Or maybe you're afraid of messing up in front of someone. Or maybe you're worried about being criticized by your boss, so you're protecting your career. So if you start sweating, ask yourself, what am I trying to protect? What am I afraid of losing? And that will help you figure out the underlying conflict. So there you have it. For symptoms to look out for: excessive sweating, a memory of a fire, a conflict and pain. And the takeaway is to try to understand the message. Why is your body giving you these signals? What's the purpose? What are you trying to achieve? And once you understand the message, then you can consciously choose to either accept it or reject it. Here's another video on social anxiety. Check it out.